I just wanted to say something before this video begins. This this is probably the first time I've done something like this, and therefore it's not going to sound the best. And the reason it will not sound exactly the best is because I'm not overly good at reading scripted kind of stories or stories out loud in general, even though I'm the one who writes them. Or if I write them, my bad. See, this is what I mean. I can't really talk that well. So, I just wanted to apologize in advance, and I hope you guys enjoy the story. The characters in the story are OCs of mine. The red demon wolf kind of guy, his name is Nevar, aka Exile. The other wolf is named Lianne. Thank you for listening and being open-minded, and I hope you enjoy my story. Nevar was walking away from a battle that left his back left leg wounded. He blamed it on his claws that caused him pain during the battle. He left bloody paw prints. He ripped out his own claws on his front and back paws afterwards, keeping 3 on a strap of leather that was around his neck. He doesn't remember why he wore it, but then again, he doesn't know why he wore earrings, so he guessed he just liked it. The rain washed some of the blood away. His head hung low, looking down, his blue mohawk soaked. He watched pellets of water drip from his mohawk to the ground. The ground sunk under his paws as he stepped, mud getting into his wounds. Though painful, he kept walking, seeking shelter and maybe some food. He felt strange, and not because of this unfamiliar pain. His mind was clear, not that he thought much to begin with. He didn't feel the controlling urge, or even the want, to turn around and finish his foe. He didn't lose, they just parted after trading blows. He walked for a while till he felt someone watching him. Nevar stopped and lifted his head. He sniffed. Adult she-wolf, loner. He looked over in her direction. There it is again, or lack of. No care to kill or any interest in her. He turned to keep walking, taking advantage of the peace in his mind. She suddenly started toward him, cautiously. He kept his senses on her, but otherwise paid no mind. Hey, the she-wolf stopped. Nevar stopped and looked back. Nevar has little to faint memory of speaking before, but he could try. Are you talking to me? Nevar turned around, facing her. No, I'm talking to the other red wolf behind you, the she-wolf responded sarcastically. Nevar felt a flash of anger. He didn't want to go back to whatever was causing him to want to kill, mostly because he didn't understand and didn't see the point or reason for most of his victims. I'm sorry, yes, I'm talking to you. What happened to you? The she-wolf took a step toward him, leaning her head forward, sniffing him. He knows she doesn't understand what he is, and she wants to find out, whether out of curiosity or she sees him as a threat. Nevar doesn't blame her. If she knew, which he's surprised she doesn't, she wouldn't be talking to him. She'd be running to another continent. I was in a fight, Nevar answers. She tilts her head, looking at his accessory on his neck. It had 3 of his claws on it. She must think I'm crazy or insane. Come with me, the she-wolf said, almost insisting. Nevar was slightly taken aback by this. He nodded, then she walked away where she entered. Nevar followed her. Her den came into the clearing. He sniffed. She had pups here before, though there were no signs of them now. He sniffs more. The faint scent of unfamiliar wolves points to the den being found and the pups being killed. She entered and sat by a corner and gestured her head to a spot in the back of the den. Nevar looked at her, then over to, supposedly, his spot. He preferred being outside, but if he wants her help, he'll have to do what she says. He walks over and lays down. I'm Lianne, by the way, she offers. Nevar nods. What's your name? Lianne asks. Nevar looked at her. My name? He repeats. His mind flashed with dragons he's never seen before and wolves and people he has killed, calling him Nevar. Most yelling. Nevar, he answers. Lianne nods and walks over and lays down in front of him. They looked at each other for a few minutes. Lianne looked like she was trying to figure him out. What I am. Who I am. What happened to me. Maybe even where I came from and whether I was staying around here. It would be hard to miss someone like him. Red wolf with a blue mohawk and metal poking out of his tail and upper front legs, and I guess now, no claws. Lianne then lowered her head and started to lick his paws, cleaning the mud off them and out of the wounds. Nevar watched. She was nice, yet she was alone. Her den is probably on the edge of two wolf pack territories, the pack she's from and the one that killed her pups. At least she wasn't here for that, because if she was, Lianne would be dead too. Nevar was sure he would run into these packs eventually, but he'll know which one killed her pups. Nevar owes her now, and he knows how he'll repay her. Lianne wouldn't like it. She doesn't have to. The next morning it wasn't raining. He could tell it was damp and moist out though, most likely still muddy and slippery, and yet Lianne was looking outside her den. He knew what she was about to ask, and he'd rather she'd stay inside. She turned to look at him. "I'm going out hunting. Are you hungry?" Lianne asks. Nevar knew she'd bring back food for him anyway, even if he'd say no, and if he offered to come, she wouldn't let him. "Anything is fine, thanks," he says. Lianne nodded, then tried it out. He listened to her paws on the wet grass and ground till he couldn't hear her anymore. She'd be gone for hours. Nevar watched the entrance, wondering if he should go look for her. He convinced himself she was okay. He could feel it, so he continued to wait. It was only a few hours before dark when he heard paws on the ground. Nevar lifted his head and sniffed. She was back, with a rabbit. He could smell another kill. Lianne had another kill for herself, so she won't expect him to share. She came down into the den and dropped the rabbit in front of him. She looked fine as well. "Sorry it took so long," Lianne apologized. Nevar looked down at the rabbit, then up at Lianne. "That's all right, thanks," Nevar answers. She smiled down at him. "No problem." She stepped back, giving him space, then laid down. Nevar watched her, then looked down at the rabbit. He picked up the rabbit, then lurched his head back, opening his mouth wide, and swallowed the rabbit whole. He could feel Lianne's gaze on him. He looked at her. Lianne looked down for a moment, then looked at Nevar's leg. "Do you mind if I see what's wrong?" Lianne asked, as though not bothered by how he ate. "No," Nevar said. Lianne inched toward his leg and looked at it. "Does it hurt?" Lianne asks. Nevar looked back at her. "It's sore," Nevar shrugged. She noses his leg a bit. "How about that?" Lianne asks again. "Yeah, that hurt," Nevar says. She nods and continues looking at his leg. Lianne stands up. "Do you mind if I—" Lianne gestured her paw to his leg. Nevar was hesitant to answer and shakes his head. Lianne looks back down at his leg and puts her paw on his leg and presses down gently. Nevar looks away, folding his ears back. She looks over and stops. "Sorry," Lianne says, looking apologetic. Nevar looks over at her. "I'm pretty sure you have a minor fracture and some bruises. You'll be alright. You just need time to recover," Lianne says. Nevar nods. Over the past few months, he stayed with Lianne. He was fully healed within 2 weeks, but he stayed. They grew close. One day, Lianne came back with a gift for Nevar. He wasn't sure why she was giving him a gift, but it'd be rude to reject it. She held a ring in her mouth, looking at him. It was different from the ones in his ear, but golden-colored, just like them. "What is it?" Nevar asks. Lianne chuckled a bit. "It's a nose ring." Lianne smiled. "Oh," Nevar tilted his head a bit. "You want it?" Lianne asked. Nevar straightened his head and nodded. Lianne put the ring in his nose. His nose was dripping blood, but Nevar didn't notice the pain. He was looking at Lianne. She looked back at him. She licked his nose, cleaning off the blood. She then takes a step back. "You look good," Lianne smiles. Nevar smiled a bit. Lianne looked at his smile. "You're smiling," Lianne remarks, her smile disappearing. Nevar's smile faded. He didn't entirely understand. "No, I liked it." "You never smiled before," Lianne says, sounding a bit sad. He smiled, and Lianne took a step closer to him and rubbed his neck with her head. Nevar didn't move. He just looked at her and, without thinking, laid his head on her neck. A week later, coming back from hunting with Lianne, he felt off. He carried the fawn he caught to the den. Lianne returned sooner, and he could smell she caught a rabbit. He started to assume that's her specialty to catch. Nevar was better at catching bigger animals like buck or bigger, but he doesn't want to get more food than need be. He came down to the den and put the fawn down. Lianne looked over at him. "What took so long?" Lianne asks. He knew she was joking. "Enjoying the scenery," Nevar responds, his attempt at returning the joke. She laughed a bit. After they ate their food, Lianne went to the entrance of the den. "Want to come with me for a patrol?" Lianne asks, looking back at Nevar. Nevar walks over and leaves with her. "You almost forgot it was spring," so it's not too surprising she wants to patrol. That pack might come to see if she's still there, and if she has more pups. If they do come back, they'll definitely find something. Nevar has gotten used to walking without claws, though in his opinion, his tracks don't look canine anymore, more like a cougar, which you can find here, though he hasn't come across any, which is a good thing. For Lianne, at least. Nevar was walking next to Lianne. His moves mirrored hers, maybe the other way around. There's something wrong with me, Nevar says, a bit coldly. She looked over at him. Really? I couldn't tell, Lianne responds sarcastically. She was joking, but he wasn't. He feels off. He took notes of every animal they passed and smelled, and when they spotted him, they fled. Not in the normal way either, like they just caught a predator hunting them. Lianne, I need you to promise me something, Nevar says. Lianne's face went serious. Nevar, what's wrong? Lianne asked, now sounding concerned. Just promise me. If I start acting strange, more aggressive, you need to run and never stop, Nevar said. Nevar was looking down. He didn't want to see her face. What are you talking about? What's wrong? Lianne tried again. Please, promise me, Nevar says. Lianne went silent, looking at him. All right, I promise, Lianne said. They walked the rest of the patrol in silence. It was maybe a week or two later when Lianne was returning to the den and Nevar returned to what he was. Lianne came up to the den from patrolling by herself when Nevar decided to stay back, when she stops dead in her tracks when she sees the den. Her instincts tell her to run. She remembers what Nevar said a while ago. What did he mean? Lianne sniffs. She doesn't smell anyone strange around, just Nevar's scent is here. She pushes forward when she sees Nevar standing in front of the den entrance. He wasn't there before. She could have swore he wasn't standing there a second ago. Nevar? Lianne calls out. Nevar had his head tilted down, but now he lifts his head looking at her. She doesn't recognize him. His eyes were different somehow. His stance. He doesn't stand like that unless Lianne has a flashback of Nevar telling her to run if he is different in some way. Lianne takes a step back. Run and never stop. Nevar's voice echoed in her head. She immediately turned and ran as fast as she could. Nevar chased. The end.